And I want to explain what I mean by that, and then we'll read from it. Only God's Word records the dawn of the brave new world we're living in. If you look at the book you hold in your hands, you should marvel at the remarkable antiquity of the Bible. There's no other book on earth like the Bible. This book records what is seldom appreciated by most people. Let me give you a brief history lesson, and I try and steer away from it, but I have trouble. That was my major in school, in all fields, both in undergrad, master's, and doctoral work. I always loved history and worked in it, but let me condense down all of history to 3 little paragraphs. The Greek writer Herodotus, who is known as the father of history, yet his writings, this is the most revered historian of the ancient world, Herodotus, his writings are contemporary with Nehemiah's. Do you know anything about the Bible? Nehemiah was at the end of the Old Testament. Nehemiah was a contemporary of Malachi. Yet the oldest historian that's respected on the planet was a contemporary of Nehemiah and Malachi, Herodotus. And they were the last of the Old Testament writers, not the first. This Bible predates any written history on the planet. But nobody wants it because they don't like what it says, even though there has never, ever been a historical mistake found in the Bible. Now, the Book of Mormon is replete with historical mistakes. The Vedas and all of the writings of the Hindus are filled with anachronisms and scientific total error. The writings of all the other great religions, all of them are just, either they don't touch on anything historical or everything they touch on is absolutely wrong. Every historic reference in this book has been found to be true, right down to the names of the leaders of ancient cities that they never heard of those people or of their titles until they excavated the city, and then they found it written in 3,000-year-old stone, chiseled in, which nobody could have fabricated. This book is amazing. The writings of Homer, you ever heard of Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey and all that stuff? Homer is a mixture of mythology and history. The line of demarcation between the history and the mythology is quite nebulous. You can't tell which part is true and which part is just part of his Greek mythology. But Homer dates from the same period as the sober histories of Samuel. Samuel, David and Samuel. That's when David was killing Goliath. Homer was spinning his mythologies of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And yet, Homer is revered as an ancient writer. Let me conclude the 3rd paragraph with this. The Bible records a detailed and accurate history that goes as far back as 42 centuries ago. That is 1,200 years before Homer. 1,200 years before, not Herodotus. We're talking about the earliest known writer of the ancient world is this Homer, Iliad and Odyssey guy. And the Scriptures predate the earliest known writings by 1,200 years. So God gives us a record going back 42 centuries ago, and I don't mean his record goes back to creation, but I mean started to be written 4,200 years ago, and that is the world of Abraham and beyond. Abraham was at least 1,000 to 1,200 years before Homer. And in the entire world, the result is there's no book like this book. God's Word, recording the dawn of the brave new world of Noah and his son, stands alone. The sacred books of the ancient records of every nation fade into dim tradition. They are nothing but sheer mythology. In fact, the books even written up to a few hundred years before Christ are just gobbledygook. There's no historic threads in them. But all those dim, when we look at the amazing Scriptures of God, who incorporate huge amounts of sober history, stretching back from the time of Nehemiah to the time of Samuel to the time of Abraham, and back further even to the time of Job, when Job witnessed dinosaurs walking on the planet and great ice sheets receding from the ice ages and the glaciers. Well, no other writing of such antiquity is at all comparable as a book of history to the Bible. And what we're going to read in just a moment is not mythology, and it's not speculation. It is a divinely inspired and recorded history of the brave new world, which isn't very old, in which you and I find ourselves.